Everyone thinks finance is where successful, wealthy, and powerful people are made. But behind the expensive suits, the multi-million-dollar deals, and all that glamour, there is a journey that can wear away your emotions, your relationships, and even who you truly are. A young analyst sits quietly in the middle of the night, staring at financial models, pitch books, DCFs, and a pile of deadlines closing in behind him. He is pulled into a brutal work rhythm where every number has to be exact, every small mistake can be blown out of proportion, and the pressure to succeed leaves almost no room to breathe. Every day he works with enormous sums of money, yet he still feels like he has never truly touched wealth. He is only the one behind the scenes, organizing, analyzing, and serving the flow of other people's money, not the one with the power to decide where it goes. At the analyst stage, his life is almost completely consumed by Excel valuations, pitch decks, and one endless late night after another. He is part of the machinery behind major deals, yet his voice remains small. The job gives him skills, but it also quietly takes away his time, energy, and sense of freedom day by day. To keep up with that pace, he has no choice but to trade away his health, sleep, personal time, and even relationships outside of work. The farther he goes, the more he realizes that success in this world is often built on pieces of personal life that are quietly cut away. What keeps him there is not just the money, but the belief that all this pressure and loss will eventually help him see how financial power truly works. He accepts the cost in the present because he believes it is the price of reaching the center of capital and influence. As he moves up to associate, his income rises and his position begins to carry more weight in the eyes of others. He gets to join client calls and hear more about how a deal is actually driven, but most of the time he is still observing, supporting, and learning how to read the signals from the people who truly make the decisions. At this stage, he gradually realizes that a successful deal does not come only from clean numbers or a precise model. What truly determines the outcome also lies in relationships. Trust, the ability to create leverage, and being in the right place at the right moment. The deeper he goes, the more he realizes that deals never just appear on their own. Behind every opportunity is a whole network of relationships, reputation, and trust built over many years. Outsiders only see the outcome, not the quiet structure of power operating behind it. The first deal he closes does not feel nearly as glorious as he once imagined. There is no real spotlight, just a modest bonus, a few brief words of recognition, and a silence long enough for him to realize that this is only the beginning. By the time he reaches VP, he is no longer just working behind the scenes. He begins managing deals, directly working with clients, and leading the team of analysts below him. Greater responsibility also means heavier pressure, because at this stage, he not only has to do his own job well, but also keep the entire machine running smoothly. His role has now changed very clearly. From someone who once only supported from behind the scenes, he has become the person who holds the mandate, negotiates fees, and coordinates the entire course of a deal. He is no longer just trying to get the work done, but making sure every side moves in the right direction so the deal can close successfully from start to finish. At this level, he begins to understand that real leverage does not come from talking the most or standing out in the room. It comes from the ability to shape other people's decisions quietly. Power in finance is often far more subtle, colder, and more effective than the glamorous image outsiders usually imagine. The deeper he goes, the more he is forced to confront ethical gray areas. There are deals he knows are not truly good, yet they still move forward because of systemic pressure, and because the logic of power in that moment outweighs his original sense of right and wrong. By the time he becomes a managing director, his work is no longer buried in financial models or detailed spreadsheets. His time is now filled with calls, strategic dinners, board meetings, and high-level relationships where the biggest decisions are actually made. In this position, he has direct access to CEOs, CFOs, major funds, and the people who truly make the decisions. That puts him not only closer to money, but closer to the center of power, where the direction of companies and even entire markets is shaped. From this point on, he sees relationships through a completely different lens. Meetings that seem warm and personal are often in reality structures of leverage wrapped in politeness. Every connection carries more strategic value than personal feeling. His mindset changes with the new position as well. He becomes less fearful, less easily shaken, and seems more in control of every situation, but at the same time he gradually grows numb. With each deal, the line between real resilience and emotional detachment begins to blur. Leaving banking to move into private equity, he is no longer just standing on the sidelines advising the flow of capital. He becomes the one directly controlling it. It is a major turning point because from this moment on, his power no longer lies in giving advice, but in the ability to make the decisions himself. In his new role in private equity, he holds far more power than before. He is no longer just involved in financial decisions. He can now sit on the board, directly influence corporate strategy and management teams, and shape the lives of thousands of employees he may never even meet. The closer he gets to the center of the fund, the more clearly he sees how cold the incentive structure really is. When a deal succeeds, most of the reward and upside flow to the fund and the people who control the capital. But when things go wrong, the pressure, risk, and consequences are often pushed down onto the management team and the people actually running the business. He also begins to understand the power of language in the world of finance. Phrases like right-sizing operational efficiency or strategic reset sound reasonable and professional, but they are often used to soften the real impact on people. Behind that polished language, there is often layoffs, tighter cost controls, and very real damage to other people's lives. As he moves deeper into hedge funds or macro investing, his perspective no longer stops at individual companies. He begins thinking in terms of economic cycles, global capital flows, interest rate policy, geopolitical risk, and market psychology. At this point, every decision is no longer based on a single company, but on how the entire system might shift. At that level, the scale of profit changes completely. A correct investment thesis no longer just brings in a solid bonus. It can generate hundreds of millions of dollars in a short period of time. At that point, precision in thinking becomes enormously valuable because a single accurate view of the market can produce results that many people spend their entire lives chasing and still never reach. But as the money gets bigger, his emotions begin to fade. Massive profits no longer bring the excitement they once did because he has become too used to large numbers. What once filled him with ambition gradually turns into something normal, cold, and almost incapable of stirring anything inside him anymore. The gap between him and ordinary life keeps growing wider. He gradually loses touch with old friends, with a simpler rhythm of life, and with the everyday concerns that once felt so familiar. The closer he gets to financial power, the harder it becomes to see the world the way he used to, because everything is now measured in terms of structure, leverage, and influence. Once he reaches the allocator or sovereign wealth level, his role is no longer about trading individual deals directly. He is now the one deciding where capital will be allocated on a national or cross-market scale. Each choice no longer just generates profit. It can also shape the order of capital market confidence and the movement of multiple sectors at once. At this level, the impact of a single decision is almost systemic. Even a small shift in how capital is allocated can ripple through the market before most people even understand what is happening. He is no longer just reacting to the world. He is now in a position where the world begins to react to him. He also realizes that the greatest advantage is not necessarily having insider information, but being high enough up to spot scattered signals before others do. With the right position, network, and superior ability to synthesize information, he can understand emerging trends earlier than the rest of the market. And in the end, the ability to read the structure before the crowd does is the most durable form of power. But the higher he climbs, the narrower his personal life becomes. Privacy, secrecy, information control, and closed-door meetings gradually replace the natural ease of ordinary life. He no longer lives in a simple rhythm as he once did, but exists in a world where every word, every relationship, and every move carries serious consequences. At the highest level of power, titles barely matter anymore because real influence sits in ownership structures, trusts, holding companies, and the network of people executing things behind the scenes. At that point, money is no longer the goal, but simply a tool for positioning risk and controlling the flow of capital. Once he controls an immense fortune, money no longer means reward or a final destination. It becomes a tool for positioning risk, preserving influence, and arranging capital ahead of major market shifts. At that level, wealth is no longer about the feeling of owning things, but about the ability to maintain control and defend against every possible scenario. He is deeply changed by the long journey through each layer of power. He no longer sees himself through familiar ideas like happiness, sadness, success, or failure. Instead, he exists as someone who must constantly navigate, calculate, and adapt to the movements of the system, to the point that his personal emotions gradually become secondary. The greatest tragedy is not that he loses time, but that he slowly loses himself. The higher he climbs, the more he loses his sense of closeness, the interests that once felt genuinely his, and even the ability to connect sincerely with other people. In this world, the highest form of success is sometimes bought at the cost of a quiet erosion of emotion, identity, and inner life. The final message of this journey is clear. Many people enter finance, believing it is simply a path to making money, but the deeper they go, the more they realize its true nature is about far more than money alone. It is a game of structure, power, and who gets to direct the flow of capital versus who remains just another cog in the machine. The deeper meaning of the entire story is that the financial system never truly stops. It only keeps changing the people who operate it from one generation to the next. Everyone who enters it believes they are chasing success, but the farther they go, the more they realize that the machine is also quietly reshaping them from within.